The baffling mystery of three men who escaped from Alcatraz prison and disappeared. In 1962, three hardened convicts achieved the impossible. Working together, they broke out of the toughest prison in the world, Alcatraz. Then they disappeared, never to be heard from again. Decades later, a mysterious letter turned up, and now there are all new questions about the legendary 1962 Alcatraz escape. But is the letter even legit? And what really happened to the escapees? Let's find out. The FBI recently revealed that in 2013, more than 50 years after the successful 1962 Alcatraz escape, someone sent a mysterious letter to the San Francisco Police Department. The letter's writer claimed to be John Anglin, one of the three men who escaped from Alcatraz 5 decades earlier. Authorities quickly realized that the letter, if real, could contain the first new clues in a case that's been officially closed since 1979. But it would take time and effort to authenticate that the letter really came from the hand of the notorious Alcatraz escapee John Anglin. John and Clarence Anglin were brothers who robbed banks together and went to prison together. After multiple attempts to escape Atlanta Penitentiary, both brothers were transferred to Alcatraz. There, they met Frank Morris, a lifelong criminal with a genius-level IQ. Alcatraz is a former prison located on an island off the coast of San Francisco, California. When it was open, it was considered the toughest prison in the world. Alcatraz was nicknamed the Rock because its maximum security walls and island location were said to make the island inescapable, but that didn't stop certain convicts from trying. 36 Alcatraz prisoners tried to break out over the years. Some were caught and sent back to their cells. Others were taken down by authorities. 2 drowned trying to swim away, but only one escape attempt actually worked. Frank Morris had a troubled childhood. Abandoned by his mother and father, he bounced around from one foster home to another throughout his youth. It wasn't long before the troubled youth started doing crimes. Frank Morris was only 13 the first time he was convicted of a crime. As a teen, he was involved with everything from drugs to armed robbery. As he got older, he graduated to stealing cars and robbing banks. Eventually, Morris got locked up for bank robbery, but the hyper-intelligent criminal escaped from Louisiana State Penitentiary. He was later recaptured while committing another burglary and sent to Alcatraz. After linking up with the Anglins, Morris added a 4th member to their crew. Alan West was a car thief who, like the Anglins, was transferred to Alcatraz after unsuccessfully attempting to escape from a lesser prison. With the 4-man team of would-be escapees in place, Morris, the only one of them who'd escaped from prison successfully, hatched their plan. With his 3 teammates behind him, Morris concocted an elaborate plan that required tremendous coordination and patience. For 6 months, the 4 men worked to widen the ventilation ducts in their cells, using spoons and other makeshift tools they obtained from throughout the compound. Using the damaged motor of a vacuum, the inmates managed to create a makeshift drill. But to avoid arousing suspicion, Morris played his accordion to keep the guards from overhearing the work noise. According to the FBI, the men used the air vents to access an empty corridor that they turned into a secret workshop they used to build better equipment for escaping. To say they were crafty would be an understatement. Morris and his team used 50 raincoats to stitch together some life preservers and a raft that measures 6 by 14 feet. Then they used a musical instrument to inflate everything. They also needed paddles, which they made out of wood. After that, it was just a matter of actually escaping. They used a bunch of pipes to climb up to the ventilator shaft, which was about 30 feet high. This was their escape route. Once the vent was nice and loose, they decided to say goodbye to Alcatraz for good. At some point between the night of June 11th and the morning of June 12th, the Anglin brothers and Morris slipped into the air vents, grabbed their survival gear from the secret workshop, and climbed onto the prison roof. But where was Alan West? At the last minute, disaster struck. Alan West had reinforced a tunnel out of his cell with concrete, and after it hardened, the tunnel was too small. West got stuck for a while and had to dig for longer than he planned. By the time West got to the prison's roof, the other men and their rafts were already gone. The 3 convicts used lifelike dummy heads made from a mix of soap and toilet paper. They also used paint to match the color of their skin. Then they placed the dummies on their beds and took off. No one really knew for sure what happened to Morris and the Anglin brothers, but authorities found evidence of a life vest and remnants of some paddles, which washed ashore on the island. Alcatraz closed in March 1963, and the remaining inmates were transferred to other facilities. But had the men overcome the choppy waters and made it north to Angel Island? The FBI officially closed the case on the three escapees in 1979. For the 17 years we worked on the case, no credible evidence emerged to suggest that the men were still alive, either in the US or overseas, stated the FBI. Despite the case's closure, the U.S. Marshal Service remained determined to investigate what happened to the convicts no matter what. Then, the San Francisco police received a letter in 2013 from one of the alleged inmates, and it was an unbelievable find to say the least. The letter obtained by CBS affiliate KPIX claimed that it was written by John Anglin. "I'm 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." John Anglin's alleged letter suggested that Morris died in 2008 and that Clarence Anglin died in 2011. In the letter, the writer claiming to be John Anglin promises to turn himself in for a 1-year prison term and some medical attention. The letter was written over 5 years ago, but an FBI lab ran a forensic handwriting analysis and came up with only one result. It was inconclusive, which meant that there was no way to know if the letter was written by Anglin or not. "My grandmother received roses for several years after the escape," said David Widner, John and Clarence Anglin's nephew. According to him, John and Clarence both signed the cards attached to the flowers. In the 1990s, a childhood friend of Clarence and John Anglin's, named Fred Brizzi, brought a photograph to the Anglin family that he claimed showed the brothers alive and well after the Alcatraz escape. Brizzi claimed that the photograph was from 1975, which is when he'd run into the Anglin brothers in Brazil. He said that at the time the escaped cons were working on a farm they'd purchased. Tourists can now visit Alcatraz and take a closer look at the vent in Anglin's cell, which he used for his great escape. But as of now, the man behind the prison escapee's letter never surfaced, and neither did any concrete evidence of what happened to the three convicts. But a ton of folks are inclined to believe that the letter is 100% real. In 1979, the story of the 1962 Alcatraz breakout was dramatized in the movie Escape from Alcatraz. The film starred Clint Eastwood as Frank Morris, with Fred Ward and Jack the Beau portraying John and Clarence Anglin.